The last normal thing I did was check a hydrant. Engine 9 was parked on Locust, and I had the wrench in my hand, and the morning was October cold in that specific way that makes you think about football and nothing else. My crew, Gutierrez, Pemberton, and the new kid, Ansari, were eating gas station breakfast burritos on the bumper and arguing about whether the Chiefs would cover. I remember Pemberton saying something about the spread, and I remember thinking that was the last shift before my days off, and I was going to spend Saturday recaulking the upstairs bathroom because Lauren had asked me twice, and I'd said sure twice and done it 0 times. Lauren is my daughter, 23, graduate student in epidemiology at Northland University, which is in Clayton, Missouri, which is, or was, 14 miles from the River District quarantine perimeter. The hydrant spun clean. I logged it, and then my phone rang. I almost didn't answer. Unknown number, middle of a shift, and we'd been getting spoofed calls all week from some car warranty scam. But something about the cadence. It rang twice, stopped, rang again, made me strip my glove and pick up. Dad. One word. And I knew. Not what had happened. I didn't know that yet. But I knew the register. Lauren is the calmest person I've ever raised or met. She argued her way through a speeding ticket at 19 with a voice so even the officer apologized. When her mother and I divorced, Lauren was 14, and she sat us both down and told us which weekends worked best for her schedule. She does not panic. She does not perform distress. So when that single syllable came through thin and stripped of every frequency except need, my body understood before my brain caught up. Lauren, what's wrong? I'm inside the zone, Dad. I'm in the Brandt building, 4th floor. They sealed it last night, and there's no one answering at the... A sound in the background. Not a scream. Worse, a long, wet dragging. Like furniture being moved by something that didn't understand furniture. They told us it was a 2-day observation hold, and that was 6 days ago, and there's no water on this floor since yesterday, and I can hear them in the stairwell. Hear who? The sick ones. The ones from the 2nd floor. They broke through B stairwell sometime around 4 a.m., and I can hear them below us. They're not, Dad. They don't sound like people anymore. I was already walking away from the engine. Gutierrez looked up. I held one finger. 1 minute. Lauren, listen. I'm gonna call. I already called. I called 911 and got a recording. I called campus police and the line is dead. I called the National Guard information line, and they told me to shelter in place and disconnected. I've been calling for 2 hours. You're the first voice I've reached. The dragging sound again. Closer. Lauren's breathing changed, went shallow and nasal, and I heard a door shut softly. The particular click of a commercial interior lock, the kind rated for privacy but not for force. Lauren, stay on the line. My battery is at 11%. I have no charger. I borrowed this phone from a girl named May, and she needs it back because her mother is... Stay on the line. Dad, if you can't get here, I need you to call someone who can. The 4th floor has 31 people. There are children, 2 under 5. Whatever they're telling you on the news about Clayton is not what is happening in this building. The 2nd floor is gone. We can hear it. We barricaded the 3rd floor landing, but the door is a push bar and the screws are... A sound. Not the dragging. Something percussive and arrhythmic. A body hitting a metal door with no sense of pain or fatigue, just repetition. Over and over. The way a machine would do it if a machine were made of meat. Lauren. I have to go, Dad. I have to give the phone back. May's mom is in worse shape than... Lauren, do not hang up. I love you. I'm on the 4th floor, West Wing, room 414. My name is Lauren Braddock. 31 people, please. The line went dead. Not dead. That's not precise. The call didn't drop. It didn't end. It was replaced by a sound I will carry in my auditory memory until dementia or death removes it. A 3-tone sequence followed by a recorded voice. The network you are attempting to reach is no longer available. This is not a temporary outage. Not a temporary outage. I stood on Locust Street with a hydrant wrench in one hand and a dead phone in the other, and the sun coming through the sycamores like every other Thursday in October. Then I went to find my crew. Battalion Chief Dominic Salter told me no before I finished the sentence. We were standing in the bay at Station 4, which is our house, and I'd driven the engine back at a speed Gutierrez later described as career-ending, and walked straight past the watch desk into Salter's office. Salter is 58, 3 years from retirement, built like a filing cabinet, and the best operational commander I've ever served under. He also has 2 daughters of his own. I thought that would matter. The quarantine zone is federal jurisdiction, Marcus. FEMA, Guard, and CDC. Fire mutual aid was revoked 48 hours ago. We go in, we lose our credentials, our insurance, and possibly our freedom. That's not politics. That's the memorandum I received at 0600 this morning. My daughter is in there. I know, and I'm sorry, but I have 43 personnel in this battalion, and every one of them has someone. If I authorize a penetration into a sealed federal zone, I am spending those 43 people and their families on your family. That math doesn't work. You know it doesn't work. I'm not asking for the battalion. I'm asking for my crew. 4 people, 1 engine. In and out through the utility corridor on Benton. I pulled the pre-plans last year when we did the high-rise inspection, and there's a... No. Dom. Captain Braddock. No. He held my eyes. I could see the exact shape of his sympathy. It was real, and it was bounded. And the boundary was the same line every commanding officer draws. The line between the people you are responsible for and the people you cannot reach. I had drawn that line myself. Dozens of times, at structure fires where the math said stop. I understood the line. I had enforced the line. I hated the line. If I go on my own time, off-duty, personal vehicle, then you go as a civilian, and I can't stop you. And I will tell you once, only once, that the perimeter is enforced with lethal authority as of 0300 today. They are not checking IDs. They are not making exceptions. A National Guard sergeant shot a paramedic on Route 61 last night because she crossed the tape. That's not rumor. That's a Mabus alert I read with my own eyes. I left his office. Gutierrez was waiting in the hall, and behind her, Pemberton and Ansari. They'd heard everything. Station walls are not thick. Don't, I said. We're going, Gutierrez said. She said it the way she says everything, like the decision had been made before she spoke, and speech was just a courtesy. You heard, Salter. Lethal perimeter. Federal zone. You go in with me, you lose your job, your pension, and maybe your life. This is my daughter, Elena, not yours. Pemberton, tell the captain what you did before you were a firefighter. Pemberton shifted his weight. He's 6'4", quiet as a wall, and I sometimes forget he existed before he joined the department. 2 years Army Corps of Engineers. Forward operating base construction. I know fencing. I know concertina wire. And I know where guard units leave gaps because I used to be the one who forgot to close them. I'm sorry. The new kid looked at me. 24. 6 months on the job. I barely knew his middle name. My sister goes to Northland, he said. She stopped answering yesterday. So this isn't just yours, Captain. Respectfully. I looked at the three of them. I should have said no. A captain protects his crew. A captain draws the line. That is the job. And I had done the job for 17 years. And the job had never once required me to choose between the oath and my daughter's voice saying please at 11% battery in a building where the stairwell had already fallen. Private vehicles. No department markings. No radio traffic. If we get caught, I compelled no one. Understood. 3 nods. Pemberton. Pull the pre-planned binder for the Brandt building and every adjacent structure. And sorry. Go home and get whatever your sisters told you about the campus layout. Gutierrez. I need a way past the perimeter that doesn't involve Route 61. I already have one, she said. How? Because I started planning it while you were still in Salter's office. Gutierrez's route used the storm sewer, not the main trunk. That was graded and monitored, but a maintenance branch that ran beneath the old consolidated rail yard, built in 1974, decommissioned in 2001, and never sealed because the city council tabled the appropriation 6 times and then forgot. Gutierrez knew about it because her uncle had worked for the water department and used to tell stories about the places beneath Clayton that didn't appear on any current map. We loaded Pemberton's truck at his house with turnout gear without department patches, medical kits, pry bars, 2 Halligans, bolt cutters, headlamps, water. I added my personal sidearm, which I've carried off duty for 11 years and fired in practice approximately 400 times, and at a living target, exactly 0. Gutierrez brought a crowbar and a look that suggested she considered it sufficient. We drove south at 1340 hours. The highway was wrong. That was the word my brain offered. Not empty, not abandoned. Wrong. Traffic existed, but it was all flowing north, away from Clayton, in a steady arterial pulse, and we were the only vehicle heading south. People stared at us from opposing lanes, with the specific expression of those watching someone walk into a place they just ran from. A woman in a minivan met my eyes through the glass and shook her head slowly, not in anger, in something closer to pity. The radio, civilian FM, was cycling between an emergency broadcast tone and a looped FEMA message that said the Clayton containment area was under controlled federal management and that all residents within the affected zone should remain in place and await instructions. The message had the serene, modular calm of text written by committee, approved by lawyers, and recorded by someone who would never enter the zone herself. I turned it off. By 1420, we could see the perimeter. The National Guard had established it along a line roughly corresponding to the old city boundary Jersey barriers, concertina wire on portable stanchions, and at the main intersections, Humvees with mounted lights. The soldiers I could see through Pemberton's binoculars were young and visibly uncomfortable and holding their rifles in the way people hold rifles when they have been told they might have to use them, but have not yet been told on whom. We parked in a residential alley 6 blocks north of the rail yard, behind a house with a foreclosure notice in the window. Pemberton led us to the sewer access point, a rusted maintenance hatch behind a retaining wall, hidden by a decade of uncontrolled sumac growth. He cut the lock with bolt cutters. The hatch opened onto a steel ladder descending 12 feet into darkness that smelled of standing water and calcium deposits, and the particular mineral exhale of concrete that has been wet for years. This runs southeast for a quarter mile, then connects to the branch line that crosses under Benton. After that, we surface in the loading dock behind the Clayton Commerce Building, which is 2 blocks from the Brandt Building's west entrance. You mapped all this in 2 hours? I mapped it in 40 minutes. I spent the rest of the time trying to talk myself out of telling you about it. We descended. The tunnel was 4 feet wide and 5.5 feet tall, which meant Pemberton walked in a crouch that would cost him the cartilage in both knees if it lasted more than 20 minutes, Water ran along the channel floor at ankle depth. Cold, clear enough to see the concrete beneath, moving northeast. Our headlamps cut yellow corridors in the dark. The sound was our breathing and the water and a distant mechanical hum I could not identify. Ansari was quiet. He'd been quiet since his house. I'd seen the look on his face when he packed his bag. The expression of a young man who has only ever encountered death as a theoretical professional hazard and is now walking toward it as a personal certainty. Ansari. Captain. Your sister. What's her name? Ria. Where was she the last time she answered? Campus Health Center. She volunteers at the front desk on Wednesdays. She sent me a text at 8:14 a.m. Tuesday that said, "Something weird happening. They're locking the doors." That's the last thing. The health center is on the east side of campus. That's 6 blocks from the Brandt building. I know. If we find her, we find her. But the mission is the Brandt building. 4th floor, 31 people. We go there first. He nodded. I watched him nod. And I knew, with the administrative clarity that 17 years of command instills, that if we passed within 2 blocks of that health center and his sister might be inside, no order I gave would keep him on mission. And I knew that I would give the order anyway, because that is what captains do, and that he would break it, because that is what brothers do, and that the distance between those two truths would be where someone got hurt. We walked south under the dead city. We surfaced into smoke, not fire smoke, something chemical, acrid, clinging to the back of the throat with a sweetness that didn't belong. The loading dock behind the Clayton Commerce building was open on one side, facing an alley, and the air that moved through it carried that smell along with a quietness I have never encountered in an urban environment. No traffic, no HVAC hum, no human ambient noise, no voices, no music leaking from windows, no distant argument or laughter or television. Just the wind and something else beneath it. A low, irregular percussion, far away but omnidirectional, as if the city itself had developed an arrhythmia. What is that? Ansari whispered. Movement, Pemberton said. A lot of it. Multiple sources. He means them, Gutierrez said. Come on. We moved through the alley to Benton Street and got our first clear look at the quarantine zone from inside. Clayton was a college-adjacent commercial district, restaurants, a bookstore, 2 coffee shops, a vintage clothing store Lauren used to drag me through every Christmas. The storefronts on Benton were intact but dark, and the street was littered with the debris of rapid departure. An overturned stroller, a laptop bag with its strap-sheared shoes. Individual shoes. I counted 7 in one block. People run out of their shoes when they are running in a way that no longer accounts for what they're wearing. And on the pavement, in several places, dark stains that were not oil. Captain. Gutierrez at my shoulder, pointing south. 3 blocks down Benton, at the intersection with Maple, a cluster of figures stood in the road. Stood is the wrong word. They were upright, but their weight distribution was wrong. Pitched forward, heads low, shoulders rounded as if they were listening for something subterranean. 6 or 7 of them. From this distance, I couldn't determine gender or age, only that they were motionless and their clothing was wrong. Torn, darkened, hanging in configurations that suggested it had been pulled at violently. Those aren't survivors, Pemberton said. No. Do they see us? I don't think they work on site. Lauren said she could hear them. She didn't say they were hunting. That was hours ago. I know. We moved west, away from the cluster, using parked cars as concealment. The Brandt building was visible now. a 6-story concrete rectangle that had been Northland University's Life Sciences building before the quarantine repurposed it as a civilian holding facility. I could see the ground floor windows had been boarded from outside with plywood and stamped with federal quarantine notices. The main entrance was chained. 2 military vehicles were parked at the curb, both empty, both with their doors open. Doors open. Gutierrez pointed at the vehicles. I could see the same question on her face that was forming on mine. If the guard had posted sentries here and those sentries left their vehicles open, they left in a way that was not orderly. We approached the west side of the building. Service entrance, metal door, no chain, but a card reader with a dead indicator light. Pemberton worked the Halligan into the frame, and we were inside in under a minute. The lobby was a quarantine staging area. Folding tables with intake forms, boxes of surgical masks, most still sealed. A laptop open on a desk, battery dead. And taped to the wall, a hand-drawn floor plan with annotations in blue marker. Floor 1, processing. Floor 2, medical observation. Floor 3, general population. Floor 4, overflow/families. Floor 5, restricted. Floor 6, federal personnel only. Lauren was on the 4th floor. The elevator was dead. Stairwell A on the east side was where Lauren said the breach happened. I led us to stairwell B on the west side. The door was intact, closed, and when I pressed my ear to it, I heard nothing from the other side. We opened it. The smell hit first. Not decomposition, not yet, but the close, ammoniac stink of a space where many human bodies have been confined without adequate sanitation. Beneath it, something else. Something that registered not as a smell, but as a warning. The way ozone before a storm isn't really a scent, but an instruction. The stairwell was empty. Our lights swept upward across poured concrete and steel rail, and I saw, on the landing between the 1st and 2nd floors, a handprint on the wall, dark, smeared downward. And below it, on the steps, a cell phone with a cracked screen, still showing a half-composed text message. "Mom, if you get this, we are still." That was all. "Move," I said. We passed the 2nd floor landing without stopping. The door to the 2nd floor was open, not breached. Open. Someone had propped it with a folding chair. And through the gap I could see a corridor lit by the gray light of exterior windows. And in that corridor, shapes that were not standing and not lying down, but occupying a posture between the two, slumped against walls and each other like passengers who had fallen asleep in a terminal and then been rearranged by something careless. None of them moved. Gutierrez put her hand on my arm. I understood. We did not stop. 3rd floor. The door was closed and barricaded from the hallway side. Chairs, a desk, a filing cabinet, all wedged tight. Someone had done this with knowledge and urgency. The barricade was holding, but I could see stress fractures around the hinges where repeated pressure from the stairwell side had begun to deform the frame. Whatever was on the 2nd floor had tried to come up. The barricade had held, for now. 4th floor. The door was closed, and when I knocked, 3 measured raps, pause, 2 more, the pattern I used to use on Lauren's bedroom door when she was 16 and angry at me. There was silence. Then a voice. Female, not Lauren. "Who is that?" "Captain Marcus Braddock, Kansas City Fire Department. I'm here for the 4th floor survivors. My daughter is Lauren Braddock. She called me 6 hours ago." Silence, then whispering. Then the sound of heavy objects being moved. Another barricade, this one built from the inside. The door opened 8 inches, held by a chain I recognized as a bicycle lock threaded through the handle and anchored to a pipe. A face appeared. Asian mid-20s, exhausted in a way that went past sleeplessness into a kind of erosion. One eye was badly swollen. "May?" I said. The recognition in her face was complicated. Relief and suspicion layered over a foundation of fatigue so deep it had become structural. "You're Lauren's father. She used your phone. Where is she?" May opened the door. The chain dropped. Behind her, a corridor of fluorescent lights, half of them dead, the rest buzzing at a frequency that suggested failing ballasts. And along both walls, people, sitting, lying, standing, children and adults. I counted quickly the way you count in a structure fire, by clusters and gaps. 26 visible. Some looked up at us with hope. Others didn't look up at all. "Room 414, May said. "She's been running triage from there since Monday. She's the closest thing we have to a doctor, she's a second-year grad student, but she's the one who organized the water rationing and the barricade schedule She's been keeping people alive in here, Captain. You should know that." I was already moving down the hall. Gutierrez, Pemberton, and Ansari followed. The people we passed watched us with the particular attention of those who have been waiting for authority to arrive and are now examining whether it is real. Room 414 was a former lab office converted into a medical station. 2 desks pushed together as a treatment surface. Supplies arranged with the compulsive neatness of someone working with too little. A whiteboard on the wall with names and check marks. A tracking system I recognized as a patient monitoring board, improvised but structurally sound. Lauren was in the corner, kneeling beside an elderly man on a cot, holding his wrist and counting silently. Her hair was pulled back, and her clothes were the same ones I'd seen in a photo she'd texted me 9 days ago. A gray Northland hoodie and jeans. And she was thinner than that photo, and her hands were steady, and she was alive. She looked up. "You came. You called." She stood. She walked to me. She put her arms around me, and she was shaking. Not visibly, not in any way the others could see, but I could feel it. A fine tremor running through her shoulders that was the first and only concession to fear I would witness from her in the next 48 hours. "I didn't think anyone was coming," she said into my chest. "They stopped answering 3 days ago, all of them, every number." "I'm here. I brought my crew. We're getting you out." She pulled back. The tremor stopped. And the look she gave me was not gratitude or relief, but something I'd seen before. In battalion chiefs, in incident commanders, in people who have been carrying operational responsibility alone, and now must decide whether the arriving unit understands what they're walking into. "All of us," she said, "not just me, all 31. Lauren, there are 9 children on this floor, Dad. The youngest is 14 months. Her mother has been holding her for 6 days without sleeping more than 40 minutes at a stretch. There's a man in room 418 with a broken femur that I set with a curtain rod and electrical tape. There's a diabetic woman whose insulin ran out yesterday. All of us, or I'm not going." I looked at my daughter. I looked at the board behind her. I looked at the names. "All of you," I said. "Tell me what we're dealing with." Lauren briefed us in room 414 with the door closed. 31 people on the 4th floor. Of those, 24 were ambulatory. 3 were injured but could move with assistance. The broken femur, a woman with a deep laceration on her calf, sustained during the stairwell barricade construction, and a 12-year-old boy with an asthma condition exacerbated by 6 days of stress and bad air. 4 could not walk. The elderly man on the cot, who was dehydrated to the point of intermittent confusion, a pregnant woman in her 3rd trimester, and 2 people Lauren described carefully as declining. "Declining how?" Gutierrez asked. Lauren looked at me. The look contained a secondary briefing she was not ready to deliver in front of the others. Later, she said, the building situation was worse than the phone call had conveyed. Stairwell A, the east stairwell, had been breached from the second floor on Tuesday morning. The infected had pushed through a fire door that was rated for 90 minutes and had held for approximately 70. They now occupied the second and third floors of the east side. Stairwell B, the one we'd used, remained clear, but the third floor barricade was degrading. Lauren estimated 12 to 36 hours before it failed. How many infected in the building? We don't know. The second floor was the medical observation ward. 40-plus people were being held there when the first conversion started. We heard the change happen over the course of one night. It wasn't fast. It took hours. And the sounds were... She stopped. Reset. We don't know how many are still in the building versus how many got out through ground floor breaches. Enough. Pemberton had the building pre-plan open on the floor. West stairwell to the loading dock exit on the ground floor. Same way we came in. The problem is the ground floor. We didn't clear it on the way up, Captain. We moved fast and got lucky. Going down with 31 people, some of them carried, is a different operation. And the ground floor connects to everything, Ansari said. Stairwells, elevators, service corridors. If they're mobile between floors, the lobby is where they'd pool. There's another option, Lauren said. She went to the whiteboard, erased her patient tracking charts, 6 days of work, gone in a swipe, and drew a simplified floor plan. The Brandt building connects to the Whitfield Center next door through a third-floor sky bridge. Whitfield is a parking garage. If the sky bridge is intact and Whitfield is clear, we can get everyone across and down to ground level on the garage ramps. Open air, vehicle access, and a straight shot north to Benton. The sky bridge is on the third floor, Gutierrez said. The floor with the failing barricade and the infected staging behind it. Yes. So we'd have to go down, not up, through a floor that is in the process of being overrun, to reach a bridge that may or may not still be intact, leading to a structure we know nothing about. Yes. Silence. Pemberton studied the floor plan. Ansari was looking at me with an expression I recognized, the young firefighter's calculation. The one where you weigh the captain's judgment against your own gut and decide which to follow. There's a third option, I said. We go back out the way we came. Sewer tunnel. Carry who we can, assist the rest, and move fast. A quarter-mile through a tunnel that's 5 feet tall, with a man on a stretcher, a pregnant woman, and 9 children, with a tunnel diameter too narrow for 2 adults to pass side by side. Gutierrez's voice was level. She was not arguing. She was measuring. What about the National Guard? May had appeared in the doorway. You came from outside. You have radios. Can't you just call them? We don't have department radios. We came off duty, off grid. I have a cell phone that hasn't connected to a network since we entered the zone. There's a landline in the 6th floor federal office, Lauren said. We heard it ring twice on day 3. It might still be connected. The 6th floor is locked. Federal access only. The Halligan will open it, Pemberton said. 3 options. The tunnel. Safe route, logistically impossible for the full group. The sky bridge. Viable route blocked by the failing 3rd floor. The 6th floor landline. Potential rescue call requiring us to go up into unknown territory. The captain in me wanted to pick one. The father in me wanted to pick Lauren up and carry her out the way we came and let the other 30 be someone else's math. That impulse moved through me like nausea, and I let it pass. We split, I said. Gutierrez and Pemberton take the 4th floor. Start organizing the group for movement, walking order, carry assignments, buddy system for the kids. Ansari and I go up to 6 for the landline. If we can reach someone, we coordinate extraction from outside. If we can't, we fall back to the Skybridge option and execute before the 3rd floor gives. Lauren stepped forward. I'm coming to 6. No. I know this building better than anyone on your crew. I've been listening to it for 6 days. I know which floors make noise and which don't. I know what time of day they move. You need me. She was right. I knew she was right. And I also knew that taking my daughter up into an unknown floor of a building where infected had already breached 2 stairwells was the precise inversion of everything I had come here to do. Lead the way, I said. The 5th floor was empty in a way that felt intentional. Lauren led us up stairwell B, and when we passed the 5th floor landing, she paused and put her hand on the door and listened. Ansari and I waited. The silence on the other side was not the loaded silence of the 2nd floor, not the absence of something that should be there. This was the silence of a place that had been cleared and sealed. No furniture sounds, no ventilation, no biological ambiance. 5 was quarantine staging for symptomatic individuals, Lauren said quietly. They moved everyone who showed early signs up here on Sunday. By Monday, the staff stopped going in. By Tuesday, we stopped hearing anything. How many? 11. We moved past it. The 6th floor was accessed through a final flight of stairs and a heavier door. Steel institutional, with a card reader identical to the dead one downstairs. Pemberton's Halligan would have opened it in seconds, but I'd brought the smaller pry bar, and the lock was electronic, dead without power. I worked the bar into the frame and leveraged it. The jamb cracked on the 2nd pull. The federal floor was different from the rest of the building. Carpeted hallways, real offices with doors, a small kitchenette with a coffee maker still holding cold brown liquid. The windows up here were uncovered, and the late afternoon light came in at a long angle and showed us everything. 3 offices, a conference room, a communications station in the back corner with a desktop computer, a shortwave radio, and, mounted on the wall behind the desk, a landline phone. The phone was beige. It was the most ordinary object I had ever been desperate to see. Lauren reached it first. She picked up the handset, listened, and her shoulders released half an inch. Dial tone. I took the phone and dialed the Emergency Operations Center number I had memorized as part of my department's disaster protocol. It rang 4 times, 5. Then a click and a voice. Male, stressed, speaking over a background of radio traffic and overlapping conversation. Jackson County EOC, state your emergency. This is Captain Marcus Braddock, Kansas City Fire Department, Engine Company 9. I am inside the Clayton Quarantine Zone at the Brandt Building, 1400 block of Benton Street. I have 31 civilian survivors on the 4th floor, including 9 children, a pregnant woman, and multiple injured, requesting immediate extraction. Silence. Then, Captain, say again your location. Brandt Building, inside the Clayton Quarantine Zone, 31 survivors. A longer silence. I could hear the man's breathing change. Captain Braddock, the Clayton Zone is under federal quarantine authority. Fire and EMS mutual aid has been suspended. I cannot dispatch resources into that perimeter. You need to contact FEMA or the Guard directly. The Guard isn't answering. The FEMA line plays a recording. I have children in this building. I have people who cannot walk. The ground floor is compromised, and the stairwell barricade on 3 is going to fail within 12 to 30 hours. I need extraction. I understand. I'm going to transfer you to... Do not transfer me. Write this down. Brandt Building, 1400 Benton, 4th floor, room 414. 31 people, 9 children, 14 months to 12 years. You write that down and you make sure someone reads it. I heard him writing. Then, Captain, I have it. But I need to be straight with you. We've received 42 extraction requests from inside that zone in the last 3 days. None have been fulfilled. The federal position is that no personnel enter or exit until the containment assessment is complete. I don't know when that will be. I'm sorry. When you hang up this phone, those 31 people become names you could have helped. You understand that? Yes, sir. I understand that. I'm going to push this up with priority and your name and badge number. That's what I can do. It's not enough. I know it's not enough. He gave me a reference number. I wrote it on the wall with a pen from the desk next to the phone, in digits large enough to be read from across the room. Then I hung up. Lauren was watching me. He can't send anyone, I said. I heard. Ansari was at the window, looking north. Captain, come look at this. I joined him. From the 6th floor, we could see north along Benton, past the intersection with Maple, to where the perimeter barriers were visible as a gray line across the road. And between us and that line, spread across 3 blocks in clusters of varying size, were the infected. More than I'd seen from ground level. Far more. Dozens. Some standing in the arrested posture I'd observed earlier. Others moving not quickly, not with purpose, but with a slow, iterative drift, like sediment being redistributed by a current only they could feel. A few were on the ground, motionless, and I could not tell whether they were dead or in some other state. That's between us and the tunnel entrance, Ansari said. Yes. And between us and the perimeter. Yes. I looked south. The campus health center was visible. A low brick building 4 blocks away, its parking lot empty, its front door open. Ansari saw me see it. I saw him see me see it. The mission is the Brandt building, I said. Yes, Captain. We went back downstairs. Gutierrez had organized the 4th floor in our absence with an efficiency that made me briefly, absurdly proud of my department's training program. She had divided the 31 survivors into 4 groups. Group 1, 12 ambulatory adults, no significant medical issues, capable of moving at normal pace. Group 2, 8 adults requiring minor assistance, dehydration, minor injuries, psychological impairment. Group 3, the 3 mobility-limited individuals. Marcus Delaney with the broken femur on an improvised stretcher, Dana Cortez with the calf laceration using a chair leg as a crutch, and Elijah, the asthmatic 12-year-old, being carried by his mother. Group 4, the 4 non-ambulatory cases. The elderly man, the pregnant woman, and the 2 people Lauren had called declining. It was the declining ones I needed to understand. Lauren pulled me into room 412, closed the door, and told me. There's a man named Gordon in 416. He was scratched during the stairwell barricade build on Tuesday. Not bitten. Scratched. Through a gap in the door. I cleaned it, dressed it, and watched him for 24 hours with no change. Then, Wednesday night, he started running a fever. By Thursday, he was incoherent for periods. Lucid, then gone, then lucid again. The pattern is, it matches what I observed on the 2nd floor before they turned. How long? I don't know. The ones downstairs went from fever to conversion in approximately 8 hours. Gordon has been febrile for over 48. He's slower. Maybe the scratch vector is slower. Maybe his immune system is fighting it. I don't know. And the other? Patience Okonkwo, 63. No injury, no scratch, no known exposure. She collapsed yesterday and hasn't woken up. I think it's a stroke. I think it's unrelated. But I cannot be sure. And the group knows about Gordon. And they are looking at patients and wondering. What are you telling me, Lauren? I'm telling you that if we move 31 people through dangerous territory and Gordon converts mid-transit, he won't be a stranger stumbling in a stairwell. He'll be inside our group, inches from children. And I will not have the ability to stop him. Can we leave him? The question came out of my mouth. In the operational register, the tone I use when discussing vent-enter search priorities at a working fire. And Lauren heard it in that register. And her face did something I had never seen it do. A door closed behind her eyes. He is a person, Dad. He is conscious. He knows his name. He asked me this morning if his wife had been contacted. He is a person, and we are not leaving him. If he turns inside the group, people will die, possibly children. And if we leave him alone in this building, he dies for certain, alone, in a room, having been abandoned by the people he trusted. How is that different from what the government did to us? She was right. She was right, and it didn't matter because Right and Safe were standing on opposite sides of the hallway, and I had to walk toward one. We bring him, but he goes at the rear of the formation with Pemberton. And if I give the word, Pemberton moves him into a room and closes the door. Non-negotiable. And patience? Same arrangement. Lauren held my gaze for a 3 count. When this is over, I'm going to want to talk about the way you just spoke about leaving a man to die, as if you were discussing traffic routing. When this is over, you can talk about whatever you want. Right now, I need you to be the person who kept 31 people alive for 6 days, and not the person who thinks her father should be better than he is. She left the room. I stood there for 10 seconds. Then I went to brief my crew. The sky bridge was our path. The tunnel was too narrow, the streets too exposed, and the landline call had confirmed that no one was coming from outside. We would descend to 3, cross the sky bridge to the Whitfield parking garage, go down the ramps to ground level, and move north to the perimeter, where I would make the same case to the guard in person that Garrett had made at Fort Leonard Wood. That you cannot look at 70 eyes and pretend they are numbers. Assuming the sky bridge was intact. Assuming the garage was clear. Assuming the infected on the streets didn't intercept us. Assuming Gordon held. We set departure for 0500 the next morning. Darkness would reduce visibility, but Lauren believed, based on 6 days of observation, that the infected were less active at night. Not dormant, less active. The distinction mattered. I assigned watches. Gutierrez took the first. I took the second. Pemberton and Ansari split the third. Lauren refused to be assigned a watch because she intended to stay awake monitoring Gordon and patients through the night. And when I ordered her to sleep, she gave me a look so precisely reminiscent of her mother during our worst arguments that I physically stepped back. I did not sleep either. I sat in the hallway outside room 414 with a pry bar across my knees and listened to the building breathe its sick, arrhythmic breath. Below us, on the 3rd floor, the barricade held. From somewhere deep in the structure, a place I could not pinpoint, came the sound of something moving with the passion, mechanical repetition of a body that did not know how to stop. At 0430, I woke the group. There is a specific quality to the silence of 31 people preparing to move through danger with children among them. It is not the silence of a fire crew, which is professional and rehearsed. It is not the silence of soldiers, which is trained. It is the silence of ordinary people who have agreed to trust a stranger with their lives and are now confronting the physical reality of that agreement. The standing up, the picking up of children, the last look around a room that was miserable but known. A woman named Sharon helped the pregnant woman. Rosa, to her feet. Elijah's mother, Denise, had her son on her back in a carry I recognized from wilderness rescue training, his inhaler taped to the strap. Marcus Delaney, the man with the broken femur, was on the stretcher Gutierrez had built from a door and 2 curtain rods, carried by 2 men named Jim and Tobias, who had volunteered without being asked, and who held the weight between them with the synchronized care of people who understood that the man on the board was trusting them with pain. Gordon walked. He was upright, lucid, and his skin was the color of wet paper. Lauren had taken his temperature at 0400, 101.3, down from a peak of 103.8. She told me this with a cautious precision that did not offer hope, but did not withdraw it. Patience Okonkwo was on a second stretcher, unconscious, breathing. 2 women from the first group carried her. I did not know their names. I should have. That failure would sit in me for a long time. Pemberton led. Gutierrez walked the middle. Ansari took the rear with Gordon. Lauren moved freely through the column, checking, adjusting, answering whispered questions with whispered answers. I moved between Pemberton at the front and the full group, back and forth, like I was doing a sweep on a fire floor. We went down. The 4th floor stairwell was clear. The 3rd floor landing was our threshold. The barricade was still in place. The desks, the filing cabinet. But through the gaps, I could see the corridor beyond. And in that corridor, silhouettes, 3, maybe 4, standing in the gray pre-dawn light from the windows at the far end. They were not near the sky bridge. The bridge entrance is 40 feet down the corridor, left side, Lauren whispered. Glass doors should be unlocked. The infected I can see are near the east end, opposite direction. 40 feet through an open hallway with 31 people. Yes, if they hear us. They will hear us. Marcus on the stretcher, the children, the doors themselves. They will hear us. The question is how fast they respond, and whether 40 feet is enough. I looked at Pemberton. He looked at the barricade. I can clear enough space for single-file passage in about 90 seconds, but moving the cabinet will make noise. Do it. He moved the cabinet. It scraped on the floor with a sound like a short scream. And from the east end of the corridor, one of the silhouettes turned. Not quickly. A slow, weighted rotation, like a satellite dish reorienting. Then it began to move toward us. Go, I said. Single file, no running. Go now. They went. Pemberton through first, then Gutierrez directing bodies. 1, 2, 3, through the gap and left toward the sky bridge doors. The first group moved fast. The second group moved well. The third group, the stretcher, the limping, the child on his mother's back, moved as fast as a broken femur and an unconscious woman and an asthmatic 12-year-old allowed, which was not fast enough. The silhouette had covered half the distance. Behind it, the others were turning. I could see them now in the growing light. A man in hospital scrubs, a woman in a bathrobe, a teenager in a Northland sweatshirt. Their faces were not faces anymore. Something had reorganized the musculature beneath the skin into a configuration that no longer prioritized expression. They looked like rough drafts of people, the features present but serving a different function. Faster, I said, and I meant it for everyone, but I was looking at Jim and Tobias with Marcus Delaney between them. And they were trying. They were trying with everything they had. But the door and curtain rod stretcher was not built for speed, and Marcus was biting through his lip to keep from screaming. Lauren was at the sky bridge doors. They were open. The bridge stretched across the gap between buildings, glass-walled, 25 feet long, lit by the sky. Through. Everyone through. The first group was across, second group crossing, third group entering the bridge. The figure in scrubs was 15 feet away now, and I could hear it. Not a moan, not a growl, but a rapid clicking, dental and percussive, like teeth chattering at a speed no cold could produce. Ansari was still in the corridor. He had Gordon by the arm, guiding him, and Gordon was moving, but each step was a negotiation between the man's will and his body's disintegrating cooperation. Ansari, move! The figure in scrubs reached the barricade gap. It did not navigate the gap. It walked into the filing cabinet, paused, and then pushed through it with a force that sent the cabinet 3 feet across the floor. The sound brought the others forward at speed. Ansari pulled Gordon through the sky bridge doors. I slammed them shut and looked for a lock. There was no lock. The doors were glass, floor to ceiling, designed for aesthetics and light, not for holding back anything more determined than a breeze. "Halligan," I said to Pemberton. He jammed the tool through the door handles. It would hold for minutes, not hours. We moved across the sky bridge. The glass walls showed us Clayton in the pre-dawn gray. The streets below, the clusters of figures, the stillness of a city that had been set down by its inhabitants and picked up by something else. Halfway across, one of the children looked down and began to cry, and her mother covered her eyes and carried her the rest of the way without looking down herself. We entered the Whitfield parking garage. The garage was cold and smelled of concrete and motor oil and nothing else. No bodies, no blood, no signs of struggle. Just cars parked in their rows, ordinary and useless and impossibly clean in the context of everything else. "Down," Pemberton said. "Ramps to ground level. 3 floors." We descended. The group moved with a momentum now, a gravity born of the near miss on the 3rd floor. No one needed to be told to hurry. The stretcher bearers had found a rhythm. Even Gordon was moving faster, though Ansari was now bearing most of his weight. 2nd floor of the garage. Clear. 1st floor, clear. Ground level. The exit ramp, open to the street. The morning air coming in with the first gray light and the smell of smoke and the silence of a place where the normal world had been replaced by its negative image. I stopped the group at the ramp's edge and looked out. The street was Maple, running east-west. To the north, 3 blocks, was Benton and the route to the perimeter. The infected clusters I'd seen from the 6th floor were visible in the middle distance. Dark shapes against the lighter pavement, distributed without pattern. Between us and them, the street was empty. 3 blocks, maybe 4 minutes at the group's current pace. "Captain," Gutierrez said. She was pointing east, toward the campus, toward the health center. I looked. The health center was 2 blocks east, visible from the ramp. Its front door was still open. And in the parking lot, a light, a flashlight, waving in a deliberate pattern. On, off, on, off. Someone inside was signaling. Ansari saw it. "That's the health center," he said, and his voice had changed. The professional reserve was gone, replaced by something raw and young. "I see it." "Captain, that could be Rhea." "It could be anyone. It could be a flashlight on a timer. It could be a trap. Or it could be my sister." I looked north. 3 blocks to the perimeter. 31 people. A pregnant woman, a man on a stretcher, an unconscious woman on another stretcher, a man with a fever of 101 who might be hours from becoming the thing we were running from. 9 children. Every second we stood here was a second the infected could reposition, a second Gordon's fever could spike, a second the guard perimeter could change its rules again. I looked east. 2 blocks, a light. "We go north," I said. Ansari's hand tightened on Gordon's arm. Gordon looked at him with the dazed patience of the very sick. "Captain, Ansari, we go north. That is an order. My sister is in that building. You don't know that. You went into a federal quarantine zone because your daughter called you. You broke how many laws tonight? You risked 4 lives, and then 31 lives, and then your career and your freedom because your kid was on the 4th floor. And now you're telling me I can't go 2 blocks for mine?" The group was watching. All 31. And my crew. And Lauren, who was looking at me with an expression that said she understood both sides and was waiting to see which man I would be. He was right. The precedent was mine. I had built it brick by brick from the moment I left Station 4. Gutierrez takes the group north. Pemberton leads. Lauren, you're with them. Ansari and I go east, check the health center, 5-minute limit. If Ria's there, we bring her. If she's not, we go north and catch up. Dad, go with Gutierrez. You know the group. They trust you. Get them to the perimeter. Lauren looked at me for 3 seconds. Then she turned to Gutierrez and said, "Move them in a single column, close spacing. If anyone falls behind, the person behind them picks them up, not the person in front. Forward momentum does not stop." Gutierrez nodded. She'd been about to say the same thing. The group moved north. Ansari and I moved east. 2 blocks takes 90 seconds at a jog. It takes significantly longer when you are crossing open ground in a quarantine zone at dawn, and every shadow has the potential to be something that was a person yesterday. We moved along the south side of Maple, using parked cars as concealment. The infected cluster to the north was 3 blocks away and appeared static. Ahead, the health center grew larger. A single-story brick building with a flat roof and a covered walkway, and the front door standing open like a mouth. The flashlight had stopped. We reached the parking lot. Empty except for a university shuttle van with a flat tire and a Hyundai with its trunk open. The covered walkway was clear. The front door opened onto a reception area that had been converted into the same kind of improvised holding space as the Brandt building. Supplies, intake forms, but smaller and more disordered. Papers on the floor, an overturned chair, a smell that was not the ammoniac press of the 4th floor, but something sharper and more final. "Ria," Ansari called. Not a shout, a stage whisper that carried. Silence. "Ria, it's Tariq." A sound from the back. Not a voice. A tap. Metal on metal. 3 times, evenly spaced. We moved through the reception area into a hallway with 4 exam rooms. Doors closed on 3. The 4th at the end was open, and the flashlight beam came from inside, pointing at the ceiling, illuminating the room from below in a flat, institutional glow. Ria Ansari was sitting on the floor behind an exam table, holding a metal clipboard she'd been using to tap on the table leg. She was conscious, alert, and had fashioned a barricade across the exam room door using the table and 2 chairs and a filing cabinet that must have taken her significant effort to move alone. She looked at her brother, and her face performed a complicated sequence. Relief, anger, disbelief, and a grief so brief I almost missed it before settling on a calm that mirrored Lauren's. "You're an idiot," she said. "Are you hurt?" "No. But there are 2 of them in exam room 2, and they've been quiet for about an hour, and I don't know if that means they're gone or waiting. We're leaving, now. Can you walk?" "I've been sitting on this floor for 3 days. I can run." We moved back through the hallway. Exam room 2 was closed. As we passed it, I heard nothing from inside. Then, as Ansari's boot caught a piece of broken glass on the floor, I heard everything, a sudden, violent percussion against the door. The same mindless, repetitive impact Lauren had described on the phone. And the door shuddered in its frame and held, and we did not stop to see whether it would continue holding. We were out the front door in 12 seconds, across the parking lot in 20, back on Maple in 40, and then Ansari stopped. "Captain." He was looking at Gordon, except Gordon wasn't here. Gordon was with Gutierrez's group 3 blocks north. Ansari was looking at the intersection ahead of us, where a single figure stood in the center of the road, facing us, motionless. It was not Gordon. It was a woman in a hospital gown, barefoot, standing with that forward-pitched posture I now recognized as the default resting state. She was between us and the northern route. Behind her, in the next block, 2 more. "West," I said. "Around them, then north." We moved west, Rhea between us, and circled wide. The woman in the hospital gown did not follow. The 2 behind her did not follow. They stood in their postures of interrupted intention and watched us, oriented toward us, as we passed at a distance of 50 yards. And I felt their attention as a physical sensation, a pressure on the back of my neck that did not diminish with the distance. 3 minutes later, we rejoined Gutierrez's group at the intersection of Benton and Dearborn, 1 block from the perimeter. The group was intact, 31 plus Rhea. Lauren was at the front with Pemberton. She saw Rhea, and her face opened with a relief she would later deny. "Contact?" she asked me. "Visual only, no engagement. They're slow. They're behind us." For now. Where's the perimeter?" Pemberton pointed. 1 block north, Jersey barriers, concertina wire, and behind them, soldiers. There were 4 of them, National Guard, young, armed, and standing behind a barrier that had been built to keep things in, not out. They saw us coming from a block away. 33 civilians and 4 people in firefighter turnout gear emerging from the quarantine zone at dawn. And their response was to raise their weapons and shout instructions that overlapped into incoherence. "Stop where you are. Hands visible. Do not approach the barrier." I walked forward with my hands up and my department ID in my right hand, held high, and I said the only thing I could think to say. "Captain Marcus Braddock, Kansas City Fire. I have 32 civilians behind me, including 9 children and a pregnant woman. We are coming through." "Sir, no one exits the quarantine zone. Federal order. Turn around." "Turn around to what?" "There is nothing behind us. The Brandt building is breached. The health center is breached. The campus is gone. You are looking at 32 people who are alive right now, and will not be alive tonight if you do not open this barrier. Sir, I need you to..." "Sergeant." A new voice, calmer. An officer, a lieutenant, young, maybe 27, had emerged from a Humvee parked behind the line. She was holding a radio, and her face carried the specific burden of a person receiving contradictory orders from an authority that is no longer fully coherent. "These people need processing and quarantine screening," she said. "We can't just..." "Then process us. Screen us. I will submit every person in this group to whatever protocol you require. But you open this barrier now, because if you do not, I am going to stand here in front of your position with 9 children and a pregnant woman. And every camera drone and surviving journalist and passing patrol is going to see the United States Army telling a 14-month-old baby to go back into an infected zone. And you are going to live with that image for the rest of your career." The lieutenant looked at me. She looked past me at the group. The stretchers, the children, Denise with Elijah on her back, Rosa with her hand on her belly, and all the others standing in the road with their faces turned toward the barrier with an expression that was not anger or desperation, but something simpler and harder: to refuse the look of people who have survived something terrible and are now asking to be recognized as people. She keyed her radio. "Firebase Kilo, this is Outpost 7. I have 32 civilian survivors at the Benton checkpoint requesting exit and screening. 9 minors, 1 pregnant, multiple injured. Requesting authorization to open for processing." Static. Then a voice I couldn't hear clearly. The lieutenant listened, and her jaw tightened, and she keyed the radio again. "Negative, Firebase. I am not turning them around. I have visual on minors and medical cases. I am opening for processing on my authority. Log my name. Lieutenant Amara Cole, serial number." She gave her number. Then she looked at the sergeant. "Open the barrier." They opened it. The processing tent was 100 yards behind the perimeter, a white canvas structure that smelled of hand sanitizer and generator exhaust, and the particular institutional calm of a place where forms are filled and temperatures are taken, and the infrastructure of normalcy pretends to function. They separated us. Civilians in one line, my crew in another. Medical screenings, temperature checks, wristbands. Green for clear, yellow for observation. Lauren got a green band and immediately walked to the medical station and began helping the field medics process the group. And no one asked for her credentials, because competence in a crisis has its own badge. Gordon got a yellow band. His temperature had dropped to 100.1. The medics took him to an observation tent and started an IV. And when I asked the lead medic what they thought, she said, "We don't know. We don't know anything. We're seeing a spectrum of response times, and we don't have a model. Some people convert in hours. Some never do. We don't know. He was alive. He was still Gordon. That was all I knew." Patience Okonkwo was taken to a field hospital cot and examined by a doctor who confirmed the stroke Lauren had suspected. Non-infectious. Treatable. The doctor looked at Lauren's improvised care notes, written on the backs of old lab printouts, and said, "Who did this assessment?" "I did," Lauren said. "I'm a graduate student." "You're hired," the doctor said. And she wasn't entirely joking. Ansari and Ria were sitting together on a bench outside the processing tent. He had his arm around her, and she was staring at the ground with the focused intensity of someone cataloging every sound and sight of the past 3 days, and filing each one in a place where it could be revisited later, at great cost. She would need help. They both would. Gutierrez found me. She had a bottle of water and a look I recognized. The post-incident face, the one that says the adrenaline has metabolized and the cognitive bill is coming due. "Captain." "Elena." "Salter called. Your department cell connected as soon as we cleared the zone. He knows everything. He said," and I'm quoting, "Tell Braddock he's either getting a commendation or a termination, and I'll let him know which after I finish being furious." "That sounds right." Marcus. "Yeah. The Sky Bridge. When we were crossing. One of the kids. The little one, Maya. The 14-month-old. She dropped her shoe. It fell through the gap between the bridge and the building. Sharon was carrying her, and she almost went back for it. I had to put my hand on Sharon's arm and push her forward. She wanted to go back for a shoe. People hold on to normal things. I know, it was a very small shoe. She sat down next to me and we didn't say anything for a while. Lauren came to find me at dusk. She'd been working in the field medical station for 10 hours. She had changed into borrowed scrubs and her hair was different, and she looked not older, but reorganized. The 23-year-old who called me at 11% battery from the 4th floor of a dying building had been replaced by someone whose outline was the same, but whose internal architecture had been rebuilt around a load-bearing experience that would never be removed. "Gordon's fever broke," she said. "He's talking. He asked for water, and then he asked if anyone had contacted his wife. The medics don't know what it means. I don't know what it means. But his temperature is 98.9 and he's eating crackers." "Good. Rosa is fine. The baby is fine. Elijah's mother got him a real nebulizer and he's breathing clearly for the first time in a week. Marcus Delaney's femur has been properly set and they say he'll walk." "Good." She sat down next to me. We were on a bench outside the perimeter command post, facing south toward the zone. The barricades and wire and Humvees were between us and Clayton. But the skyline was visible. The buildings, the Brandt building's rectangular silhouette. The Whitfield garage. In the failing light, they looked like any other buildings in any other city. And the fact that they were now something else entirely was not visible from here. "I need to tell you something," Lauren said. "Okay. When I called you, when I used May's phone and I had 11% battery and I could hear them in the stairwell, I almost didn't call you. Why? Because I knew you would come. And I knew that coming would mean crossing the perimeter and risking your life and probably other people's lives. And I know you, Dad. I knew you wouldn't weigh it. You'd just come. And I didn't want to be the reason you died. Lauren, I called because May's mother was alone and scared, and I thought if May could hear her mother's voice one more time, it would be worth the battery. And then May offered me a turn, and I thought about not calling. I thought about it for about 15 seconds. And then I called because I wanted to hear your voice one more time. That's it. I wasn't requesting extraction. I wasn't issuing a tactical briefing. I was a 23-year-old in a dark building calling her dad because she was scared. And I came. And you came, with your entire crew, through a sewer, into a federal quarantine zone, carrying Halligans and a plan that was basically go up and then go across and then go north and hope. It was more detailed than that. Marginally, she put her head on my shoulder. It was the first gesture since the hug in room 414 that was not operational, not medical, not briefing related. It was just Lauren, just my kid. "The lieutenant," she said. "Cole. She's going to get in trouble for opening that barrier." "Probably. She did it anyway." "Yes. Because you made her see us." "I didn't make her do anything. I gave her a reason to do what she already wanted to do. There's a difference." "Is there?" I thought about it. I thought about Salter saying no in his office and meaning it, and Gutierrez saying yes in the hallway and meaning it, and the EOC operator writing down a reference number he knew no one would read, and Lieutenant Amara Cole reading her serial number into a radio so the record would show exactly who made the call. "Sometimes authority is the thing that keeps people safe," I said. "And sometimes it's the thing standing between people and safety. The job is knowing which one you are at any given moment. I've been wrong about it before. Were you wrong today?" I looked south at the skyline. I thought about the choices I'd made in the last 24 hours. The speed I'd driven, the sewer I'd entered, the order I'd given to go north when Ansari's sister was 2 blocks east, the 5 minutes I'd traded for a flashlight in a window. I thought about the math I'd done in room 412 when I asked Lauren if we could leave Gordon, the words I'd used, the register I'd spoken in, the captain's voice, the triage voice, the voice that sorts people into categories and assigns some of them to the category marked acceptable loss. My daughter had heard that voice. She would remember it. "I don't know," I said. "I got everyone out. I also made decisions I'll have to sit with. The Gordon conversation. Yeah. You were going to leave him. I was considering it. There's no difference. There's a very large difference, Lauren. The distance between considering something and doing it is the entire width of who you are. She lifted her head and looked at me with an expression I could not fully read, something between challenge and recognition. The look of an adult child seeing a parent clearly for the first time and finding the picture more complicated than the one they'd been carrying. Okay, she said. We sat together on the bench and watched the light leave Clayton. Somewhere behind the perimeter, a generator hummed and a child laughed. High and brief and startling. And the sound of it carried across the processing area like a signal flare. Because laughter in a place like this is not normal and not abnormal, but something else entirely. Something that has no name, but that lands in the chest like evidence. 3 weeks later, I still had the reference number written on my hand. Not physically. The ink was long gone. But I could close my eyes and see the digits I'd written on the 6th floor wall. Large, clear, pointless. Because a man on the other end of a phone had told me to wait for a system that had already stopped functioning. And I had written down the proof of his helplessness as though it were a promise. I went back to work. Salter gave me neither the commendation nor the termination. He gave me a 3-week suspension, a mandatory counseling referral, and a look over his desk that said everything official language could not. Gutierrez, Pemberton, and Ansari received the same. None of them complained. Ansari transferred to a station closer to his sister's new apartment. Pemberton never mentioned the sewer or the sky bridge or the filing cabinet again. Gutierrez brought it up exactly once, 3 months later at a retirement dinner, when someone asked about the worst call she'd ever run. It wasn't a call, she said. There was no dispatch. There was no call number. It was just a man going to get his kid. Lauren finished her degree. She submitted her thesis on outbreak response in civilian containment settings, and buried in the methodology section was a passage I have read 11 times. The author acknowledges that observational data collected under duress within a sealed quarantine environment may exhibit bias, as the observer was simultaneously a subject, a caregiver, and a person who did not know whether she would survive to write this paragraph. I never heard from Lieutenant Amara Cole again. I looked for her name in the after-action reports that were eventually published. She appeared once in a footnote, referenced as the authorizing officer for an unauthorized civilian exit event at Outpost 7. No commendation, no court-martial, just a footnote. Some people open the gate. Most of the time, nobody writes it down.